Forget El Chapo and forget Pablo Escobar. There's a new kingpin in town. Tse Chi Lop is known as Asia's most wanted man and has been escaping the grips of authorities for years. Tse Chi Lop is shadowed by a cluster of Thai kickboxers. He flies all over the world in luxury private jets, and police say that he once lost $66 million in a single night at a Macau casino. That's a lot of money down the drain. A lot of dirty, illegal drug money, and yet merely a sliver of what he's been accused of over the years as the head of an enormous Asia-Pacific drug trafficking syndicate. His trafficking network has destroyed lives, sparked heated, long-winded multinational investigations, and has led authorities on a wild goose chase, one which we're about to reveal the intricate details of. Tse Chi Lop is a modern-day mastermind, but he's not the first, nor is he anywhere close to the most notable kingpin of the 20th and 21st century. In the world of drug trafficking, two names have garnered reputations far greater than the rest. The first is Pablo Escobar, the king of cocaine, the man who went from selling illegal cigarettes and fake lottery tickets to overseeing the most successful cocaine ring in history, meshing politics with crime and sending Colombia into a frenzy it's still healing from. Then there's Joaquin Archibaldo Guzman Loera, the former leader of the Sinaloa cartel, who we all know a little better as El Chapo. From his teen years starting a marijuana plantation and distribution business in Sinaloa, his empire was soon so large that the American DEA were calling El Chapo the godfather of the drug world. In the eyes of many, El Chapo had created a system and a legacy more pronounced than that of the notorious Escobar before him. And yet, one Chinese Canadian is now trumping them both. Over their respective tenures smuggling drugs over country lines, El Chapo and Escobar each successfully corrupted authorities and continued to evade or dispose of any nosy investigators. And the money was flowing in. $100 bills were thought of as pennies to these gangsters. El Chapo carried around a diamond-encrusted pistol just because he could. Escobar, who controlled the Medellin cartel, amassed an estimated net worth of $30 billion by the time of his death, with El Chapo not far behind with a total of $12.67 billion, according to the New York Times. Combined, the pair has flooded the USA, South and Central America, and Spain with drugs. But their influence in Asia remained minimal. There was a gap in the Asian market, room for a sizable illegal influence to spread throughout the Asia-Pacific like wildfire. Tse Chi Lop recognized that opportunity and seized it with both hands, riding the waves en route to becoming Asia's most wanted man. Authorities are considering Tse Chi Lop's organization to be more powerful and more damaging than that of both El Chapo and Escobar before him. Tse proved himself to be no petty smuggler, and before he knew it, had become the key cog in a multinational drug-producing, money-churning machine. Before we dive into his empire, it's important to understand his background. How does an unknown name sneak under the radar only to emerge as a poster boy for the criminal world? Unlike the Latin drug lords, Tse Chi Lop is relatively discreet in his alleged operations. While he has been known to splurge from time to time, he doesn't regularly throw money around in the name of unjustified extravagance or luxury. More importantly, he doesn't resort to extreme violence to overcome obstacles. With limited major media coverage about him, he's been able to go about his business while lurking in the shadows. What is known is that Tse Chi Lop is a Canadian national. Born in 1963 in the Guangdong province in southern China, his upbringing was surrounded by violence, starvation, and conflict amidst China's Cultural Revolution. During these troublesome times, a criminal enterprise called the Big Circle Gang was founded by a group of imprisoned members of Mao's Red Guard. If you know anything about the Red Guard, you'll realize that the Big Circle Gang members had the potential to be fearless, reckless, and unpredictable. At the core of the Red Guard's mantra, they were prepared to do anything, including die, to protect Chairman Mao. Tse Chi Lop decided to join the Big Circle Gang and relocated to Hong Kong alongside a number of other gang members as they searched for a sanctuary to conduct their criminal activities. In 1988, Tse moved to Canada. Thereafter, he hopped between North America, Hong Kong, Macau, and Southeast Asia. While many of the intricate details still remain under investigation, this time of sporadic relocation is when he began developing his ever-growing drug trafficking network. Over the coming decade, Tse rose up the ranks, and according to the Australian Federal Police, became a mid-ranking member of a smuggling ring that sourced heroin from the Golden Triangle. The Golden Triangle was the nickname given to an opium-producing region at the meeting points of the borders of Myanmar, Thailand, China, and Laos. This area has been a significant cog in the transnational drug trade since World War II, up until today, and Tse was getting more and more involved with it with every passing moment. But then in 1998, Tse found himself facing his first serious run-in with the law. A New York court found him guilty of conspiracy to import heroin into America, with a potential life sentence hung over his head. While he didn't get off scot-free, his punishment wasn't anywhere near what it could have been. This was thanks to a number of combining factors, including a petition filed by his lawyer in 2000, a merciless beg for leniency, evident remorse, court records quoting that he showed great sorrow for his crimes, and a promise that if he were to be freed, he would open a restaurant and abstain from any illegal activity for good. The drug lord succeeded in reducing his sentence to just 9 years, most of which were served at the Federal Correctional Institution in Elkton, Ohio. After his release in 2006, police say he returned to Canada. He was supposed to be under supervised release for the next 4 years, but found a way to sneak back to Asia and was back to his old drug trafficking habits in no time. While in Hong Kong in 2011, Tse and his wife registered a business called the China Peace Investment Group Company Limited. Of course, the only investments in question were illegal drugs, and the business merely helped him to re-communicate with his prior connections and rebuild the narcotics trafficking empire to new heights. From then until now, investigative authorities and counter-narcotics officers from countries all over the world have been following one particular syndicate. That syndicate is thought to have been behind the unstoppable recent flooding of drugs in the Asian markets. And yes, that syndicate is considered to be the work of Tse Chi Lop. To anyone within the bubble, the syndicate is known simply as the company. To law enforcement, it's usually referred to as Sam Gore. Regardless of the name, since Tse Chi Lop was released from prison, his alleged network has been responsible for distributing high-grade methamphetamine in every direction across Asia, often hiding shipments in loose-leaf tea packaging. Investigations suggest that the meth production takes place in Myanmar, where it's then peddled across borders to countries stretching from Japan all the way to Australia. As a nation steadfast on stamping out drugs, this caused the Australian Federal Police to become one of the leading forces in the hunt for answers. On top of methamphetamine, Sam Gore has also been traced back to substantial ongoing dealings of ketamine, MDMA, and heroin. In Cantonese, Sam Gore translates to Brother Number 3. That's one of Tse's nicknames, and one of the many pieces of evidence pointing investigators to Tse as the operation's mastermind. The network that he's allegedly built is not only advanced, but responsible. Compared to the noted Latin cartels headed by Escobar and El Chapo, the Asian crime network is less prone to uncontrolled outbreaks of violence. Anti-drugs officials have stated verbatim that, quote, "The crime groups in Southeast Asia and the Far East operate with seamless efficiency, so much that they function like a global corporation." Tse Chi Lop and his followers collaborated with a diverse range of local crime groups, far more than the Latin cartels did. Japan's Yakuza, Chinese gangs, and even Australia's biker gangs were part of the pipeline. Because the amount of money changing hands is so unfathomably large, Asian drug gangs have changed their mindsets. Rather than compete against each other and spill blood, decade-old feuds have been set aside, and the conflicted groups have united with one another in pursuit of much more significant profits. How much money are we talking here? According to Reuters, who were the primary investigative media outlet, the company, aka Sam Gore, raked in revenue of between $8 and $17.7 billion in 2018 alone, just from methamphetamine. That's 1 year and one drug. Over the company's lifetime, that number skyrockets indefinitely. Within the entire $70 billion a year Asia-Pacific drug trade, Sam Gore is the dominant force. This never-before-seen boom in the Asian meth market and the sheer value of dirty money exchanging hands triggered a police response equally as noteworthy. In order to squash this underground drug ring, the largest task force in Asian drug takedown history was formed. Dubbed Operation Kungar, 20 agencies from Asia, North America, and Europe have come together under the guidance of the Australian Federal Police. This includes authorities from Myanmar, China, Thailand, Japan, the United States, and Canada. Conducting their own investigation, Reuters gained access to one of the documents related to the case. That document highlighted 19 potential critical members of the syndicate, hailing from Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, Malaysia, Myanmar, Vietnam, and mainland China. Of all of those members, Tse Chi Lop was identified as the leader. Another document collected as part of Operation Kungar, this time in the USA's Drug Enforcement Administration, or DEA, agrees that Tse is believed to be the leader of the multinational drug force. The continuous discretion and corporation-like business structure allowed Tse Chi Lop to remain at large for years. So what changed? Where did the investigation breakthrough come from? From this man, Kai Zhengzi. Kai was stopped in an airport in Yangon, the largest city in Myanmar, on November 15, 2016. After being found with 2 small bags taped to his thighs, each containing 80 grams of ketamine, he was taken into custody. An anti-narcotics officer recognized his face from the Operation Kunger case files, so went digging for intel. Kai was a closed book. He wouldn't give up much information, but police searched his phone and found an alarming video. In that video, another man was being tortured for allegedly throwing away 300 kilos or 661 pounds of meth from a boat into the waters below because he mistakenly thought the Coast Guard was hot on his tail. In the background of this torture video, a Chinese phrase on the wall read, "Loyalty to the heavens," a common saying within Chinese criminal groups, one which drew connections with the information being accrued in Operation Kunger. As it turns out, that phone was a treasure trove of clues. It showcased the meth distribution pathways in and out of Myanmar, and it had a photo of another familiar face, Tse Chi Lop. So, the Myanmar police invited the Australian Federal Police to send a team of intelligent analysts to look into the plethora of intel on Kai's phone. The AFP cross-referenced their database with those in Asia and came to the conclusion that would inevitably prove to mount a serious case against Tse Chi Lop. Prior, most of the drug seizures in Australia and Asia were thought to have been the work of multiple smaller drug rings, but this cross-reference made it clear that the shipments were the work of just one organization, Sam Gore, aka The Company. Just like business in the real world, the crime groups from across the Asian Pacific region had undergone a mega merger of sorts to form Sam Gore. How come when so many other drug operations have failed, Tse Chi Lop has managed to succeed? It's because over time, he's found a way to secure all the right pieces to the puzzle. Supply? Check. He infiltrated chemical and pharmaceutical industries, allowing for a constant stream of supply. Production? Check. His lab facilities are hidden in off-the-grid territory controlled and protected by armed groups. Connections? Check. He already knew the market and had the right contacts. Cover-ups? Check. He was smart enough to launder cash in money-spinning businesses like casinos. Choosing the most vulnerable target? Check. He chose the Asia-Pacific market, one within which governments and police forces from different countries fail to effectively collaborate. Tse also was nimble and elusive with his operations, regularly reconstructing and replanning when one avenue was shut down. For example, when Thailand halted the illegal importing of meth coming directly across the border from Myanmar, the syndicate rerouted deliveries through Laos and Vietnam instead. Now, however, in 2020, as Operation Kunger reaches full force and threatens to take down this empire, Tse Chi Lop faces uncertainty. The last time a top-level Asian drug lord was slapped with a significant punishment was in the mid-1970s. Back then, the Hong Kong trafficker Mr. Ng Sik Ho, nicknamed Limpy Ho, was sentenced to 30 years behind bars. As it stands, Tse Chi Lop has avoided arrest. Authorities continue to track him and mount the evidence in their case against him, and he probably knows it. In fact, some detectives believe that despite the intense scrutiny, Tse is continuing his drug operations, not fazed in the slightest. El Chapo was sentenced to life plus 30 years, and we all know what happened to Escobar in 1993. Outlets such as Sky News have stated that the scale of Tse Chi Lop's business puts him in the same league as El Chapo. So could he wind up facing a familiar fate? Only time will tell.